Europeans think that Europe's problems are the world's problems, but the world's problems are not Europe's problems. So it should show some sensitivity, because Europe at the end of the day makes up less than 5% of the world's population. There are 95% out there. The remaining 95% have their own concerns and interests, which are very real also.
欢迎来到胤蓝智库，带你透视地缘博弈的底层逻辑，看清世界本相。在过去几百年里，欧洲人一直习惯了坐在世界中心的位置上发号施令。在他们的潜意识里，只要是欧洲关心的事，全世界就必须跟着操心；只要是欧洲制定的规则，全人类就必须无条件的遵守。但是当时代的车轮进入21世纪时，这种居高临下的教师爷做派终于在亚洲真正的智囊面前碰了一鼻子灰。今天咱们就来深度盘点这场堪称叫醒巨婴的高端战略对话，看看面对欧洲主持人带着强烈道德优越感、非黑即白的逼问，马凯硕是如何用极其冷酷的现实主义逻辑，给还在做梦的欧洲开出了一张残酷的诊断书。
In the case of India, as you know, India's main priority now is to focus on growth and development to eliminate poverty in India. And one way they're doing it, when the prices of oil went up, as you know, India went from buying 1% of Russian oil to buying 20% of Russian oil because they had to keep their economy growing. But what's shocking is that India is now exporting some of its Russian oil to Europe, and Europe is buying it. And these are examples of the pragmatic decisions that are made. So I think it is very, when you talk to the rest of the world, don't give them a black and white view of the world, because the world is very complex and very nuanced. And if you can engage the world and understand these complexities and these nuances, then you will understand this. And as you know, even in the case of Poland also, I don't know whether I should mention this. The latest development came as a big shock to me, right? I mean, it was when I read that, I said, cannot be. Didn't Poland say that they will stop supplying weapons to Ukraine? Yeah, but that's what came out in the media. But it's also true that you've had a big fight with Ukraine. No, but the whole world read it. It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so yes, I will open the floor to you, but I have one additional question to Professor, because you said that, so my question is, because you said about the African countries, Asian countries, that they have own interests. India is in own interest, that of course we are focusing on our problems in Europe, and we should not think that the whole world will be focusing on our problems. But so I have a question about something which is called the food security. Because there is, as Ukraine as a producer of grain, and now, of course, there is a debate here in Europe, but don't you think that we should explain to the, let's say, other countries that, for example, the problems with the food that they are facing with the supply after this invasion is because of Russia? Because I have some understanding that what the countries, not non-European countries, think, that they do not see that Russia is an aggressor, and what is happening after the aggression, which is detrimental for those countries, is because of Russia, not because of Ukraine or Europe as Europe. So this is a kind of a logical problem for me, that many countries, they have pretty good relations with Russia. They have its own interest, but at the end of the day, the problems they have, for example, with some food deliveries, is because of Russia. So this is the problem for me: how to convince them, and how to explain it. So, because after this discussion and what you said about the perception in Asia, in Africa, so it means that international does not matter. We can break the law if you like, and we say, okay, we have our own interest. UN Charter does not matter. You know, this is for me, there's a problem, because for me still, okay, I'm European, I'm in Poland, I'm in a country that shares border with Ukraine. That is still black and white situation, especially when it comes to the aggression. It's not like, you know, you like the country or not, or you do not like, but it's, you know, so this, and the one additional, and I open the floor, I promise. You said that for Asian countries, China is a predictable partner. So what about some kind of, let's say, China's, activities in the South China Sea, for example, the militarization and land reclamation, the kind of, I know it's not an ASEAN country, but what about this coercion against Australia? What about the, let's say, China's activities around the Taiwan, you know? What about this kind of activities that China is doing, which are not, let's say, which are security related, to be honest, and not, and China is, because to be honest, in Europe, for example, in Central Europe, very important moment was that we started to rethink our perception of China. To for example, a coercion against Lithuania. China's coercions against Lithuania is a kind of a new mode of coercion, because China has decided to weaponize the supply chains. So I'd like to ask you about this question. I will open, and then I will open the floor to our audience.
Each of the issues you raise may take half an hour to answer. I'll give very brief answers. And there are problems, by the way. I mean, South China Sea, you're right. There are problems. There are differing claims between China and ASEAN countries. But, you know, if you read my book, Has China Won? In the chapter on South China Sea, I begin by describing what one of the most distinguished American ambassadors to China told me. His name is Ambassador Stapleton Roy. He understands China very, very well. He grew up in China as a young boy, as a father of missionary parents in China. So his understanding of China is among the best in the world. And at a lunch that I had with him, and he allowed me to quote him in the book, he said that, Kishore, when Xi Jinping proposed the demilitarization of the South China Sea to President Obama, he said Obama should have seized that offer from President Xi, say, okay, let's agree. Let's demilitarize the South China Sea. And he said, instead, this is Ambassador Stapleton Roy, American ambassador saying this. Instead, he said, we foolishly rebuffed him and we stepped up our naval presence in the South China Sea. And this is an American ambassador saying that America made a mistake in rebuffing an offer from China. And that is something you will never read in Anglo-Saxon media. So, and you know, I have his permission. You can go and double check with him if you want what he said. And in the case of reclamation of islands, it's important to at least state as a fact that the first country to reclaim land in the South China Sea was not China. Unfortunately, the ASEAN countries decided to do so. But the problem is that when the ASEAN countries claim 20 acres, the Chinese claim 2,000 acres. They're so big. You cannot compete with China, right? But if you ask me, will there be war between China and ASEAN countries in the South China Sea? Again, I make this prediction, there'll be no war. Come and see me in 5 years and let me know whether I was right or wrong. And why won't there be war? Because there are differences, there are challenges, but we keep on talking to each other. And we keep on emphasizing we've got to find solutions that work for both of us. And you know, the reality is this. This is an unfortunate geopolitical reality that has been around for 2,000 years. When great powers emerge, you can't stop them. Don't expect the great power to adjust to you, you figure out how do I deal with that great power. Because it's an asymmetry of power. And just as, when the United States emerged in the late 19th century, it conquered territories in Central America. It conquered Philippines from Spain in 1895, I think. And guess what? You adjust to new power. These are realities. And as a student of geopolitics for 50 years, I know that if you don't understand geopolitical realities will come and slap you in the face if you come from a small state like Singapore. So our position is that we will adjust depending on how the great powers are doing. And we do our best. But at the same time, so far, I can tell you that East Asia is thriving. It's amazing. The growth is absolutely phenomenal. And it was going to be even more massive growth. So for us, frankly, the world looks like a very happy place. I know it's very hard to say this here in Europe, but for us, in terms of the last 20 years have been wonderful years, the next 30 years are going to be even better years. So why should we complain?
听完马凯瑞先生这番话，不知道大家是否品出那股欧洲式的酸楚？那位主持人的发言，其实代表了现在很大一部分西方精英的典型心态，战略巨婴心态。在他们的童话世界里，事情只有黑和白，因为打到了他们欧洲的痛点，所以全世界都必须跟着喊痛，如果不喊，你们就是不分是非。但这场对话里最让人感到通透的是马凯瑞对 95% 的人口发声，欧洲总人口占不到全球的 5%。 他们坐在空调屋里谈论的高尚的制裁和价值观，指望印度、非洲那些还在为吃饱饭发愁的几十亿穷苦大众，为了欧洲的面子去切断便宜的能源，去忍受通货膨胀，这可能吗？这不仅是纪元上的傲慢，更是战略上的冷血。印度疯狂购买俄罗斯廉价的石油来保国内的经济增长，甚至转手在高价卖给欧洲。非洲和南美洲几个国家几乎没有一个去制裁俄罗斯。为什么？因为在生存与发展这个最大的基本盘面前，欧洲人的那些道德洁癖一文不值，其余 95% 的人有自己极其现实的挑战要面对。这不仅仅是一场辩论，更是对未来10年乃至50年全球格局的一次精准预判。当欧洲还在用非黑即白的战略思维自我消耗，试图教全世界怎么做事的时候，你看看大洋彼岸的亚洲正在干什么？我们正在搞全球最大的自由贸易区，我们正在搁置争议，共同开发，我们正在不声不响地修路建厂。就像马凯硕在视频最后说的那样，对于亚洲来说，过去20年是美好的，未来20年会更好，我们有什么可以抱怨的呢？时代的车轮已经不可逆转地滚向了东方，在未来多极化的世界里，能不能生存下来，永远是那些正视现实、闷声做事的建设者，而不是天天站在道德制高点上发号施令的说教者。这里是胤蓝智库，一个陪你在时代变局中保持战略清醒的频道。你觉得欧洲人什么时候能真正放下那 5% 的优越感？欢迎在评论区留下你的真知灼见，订阅我们的频道，让我们在喧嚣的世界里一起保持最冷静的己色。我们下期见。